What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and review of Rearmed Ophelia, Caeldori, Kiragi and Dwyer. So Rearmed Ophelia is a red infantry mage this time, and she's a rearmed unit, so she does provide Arcane Eclipse. I've made an entire video going over the best users of it, so that's why I'm not going to be repeating the best users here. But yeah, this weapon is definitely pretty solid for red mages, giving you -1 special cooldown, and it also has the quick and pulse effect built into it, which means that you can pre-charge specials and then loop it with special spiral. And as sort of combat, if she's at or above 25% HP, then she can get +5 to all of her stats, and also negates penalties to her attack stat, which is really great because she doesn't really have to run a attack unity skill and can just run finish skills instead and get the true damage and get the healing. And when it comes to her stats, she does have base 44 attack and base 36 speed, which is definitely pretty nice offensively, especially having a super boon in her attack. And she does have special spiral 4, and the tier 4 version of the spiral skill does give you +5 true damage when your special triggers. This actually applies to the AoE damage as well, so this is going to be useful for the AoE users. But what does not apply to the AoE users is definitely the damage reduction piercing, which you can get out of special spiral 4. Now this was a huge thing for mages by not having access to an equivalent special of Deadeye or Lethality, so they were left getting walled by damage reduction tanks. But with special spiral 4, a lot of them can utilize the damage reduction piercing and take care of a lot of the bulky threats with damage reduction, or who have Hardy Fighter and then they run deflect magic. So Hardy Fighter's damage reduction is not getting pierced by special spiral because it's a special, but still the other damage reduction from stuff like Close Call, Vital Astra, deflect magic is all getting pierced. And some of the best users of this skill are definitely going to be mages and ranged units, and Brave Lysithea is easily one of the best users of this skill because that's pretty much what she was lacking. The only effect that they were going to be missing out of this build is going to be the null guard that she would get out of running a tempo skill, but you can basically run special spiral and have Luna, and with time pulse, Luna is going to be a 1 cooldown special which you can just trigger on your double attack, and Lysithea can easily get that dive bomb effect out of her weapon and just consecutively attack. We also have female legendary Byleth. Now, male legendary Byleth did have Sublime Heaven, which did allow him to nuke really hard with that damage reduction piercing, and female Byleth was a bit behind on that, but now because of having the drive tempo in her weapon, she can actually consistently trigger Ruptured Sky on the second hit, and that is going to be really useful for all of her users. And we also have female Shez, who does make good use out of special spiral 4 by triggering Luna on her second hit. Now, she definitely benefits a lot from the drive tempo of female legendary Byleth, and I think a lot of the units which want to run this skill are going to be having the opportunity cost of not running a tempo skill. So that's why legendary female Byleth's value definitely goes quite up ahead when it comes to supporting these kinds of units. You can also run this on Monica, who does have that desperation weapon, and you can get the damage reduction piercing and then also run null follow-up. We also have Kronia getting the weapon refine at the perfect time to make use of this skill, and she is definitely going to be appreciating the special spiral extra damage because her attack stat is not really all that high. And just like female Byleth, we do have Ascended Ishtar here with tempo effect built into her weapon, so this allows her to easily trigger Ruptured Sky on her second hit. And she does have a brave weapon, so this is just absolutely fantastic, and finish skills are going to be the best skills that you can run with this on an infantry unit because you can get the healing and also even more true damage. So just with the A and B skill, you're going to be able to get +10 true damage, which is just amazing. Now, melee units can also use this, but I think they have a bit more opportunity cost because we have a lot of really good skills that melee infantries can use. So special spiral 4 is going to be pretty useful on Brave Marth, for example, who can trigger his shining emblem consistently with his Vantage in his Genesis Falchion, and this is going to be allowing him to just take out many of the units which have like damage reduction, for example like legendary Sigurd or legendary Claude, so that is very beneficial. And then he can also get damage reduction with Speed Smoke 4, for example, so he is one of the best users when it comes to a melee infantry using special spiral 4. Going back to Ophelia, she does come with attack resistance finish 4 and also time pulse, and special spiral 4 is also available. So if you do inherit the version 3 of special spiral, then you're going to be able to get the Arcane Eclipse and the tier 4 version of the spiral skill, or the tier 4 version of spiral skill and time pulse at the same time. Unfortunately, Rearmed Ophelia suffers from the Ganglot syndrome, where even though you're a rearmed unit and you're a premium unit, you still do not have a preferred skill, and that makes it pretty hard for these units to stand out in the future, because they are going to be getting susceptible to the units who will just have more stats than them and can pretty much utilize the same weapons, because they don't really have anything unique like Rearmed Prima, for example, where her slotty skill really puts her above a lot of the Rearmed heroes, for example. And here you can easily see how Peleus, a free-to-play unit in the Grail pool, is able to pretty much have a very similar stat spread to her, offensively and both defensively. In fact, he has got more HP than her, so he's going to be a bit more bulky. He's just missing out on like 3 less attack, which is going to be, coming into the play in many situations, but still overall, he's going to be functioning very similarly to Ophelia, and he's much easier to +10 merge. So Rearmed Ophelia is definitely one of the best users of Arcane Eclipse with that attack stat for nuking, but unfortunately in the long term she is going to be facing that competition from the other mages who might just have more attack than her and can pretty much copy her entire base kit along with the arcane weapon and function very similarly. But still, if you want to invest into Ophelia, then you can of course refine her arcane weapon. Arcane weapons are refinable, but they do take divine dues. So you can refine her weapon for resistance if you want to, with stacking up resistance with attack res finish 4, attack res form, and Luna can always be changed out for Iceberg. You can also run her with an AoE special, and she's going to be able to nuke pretty much any kind of map with like 3 dancers and be very effective and efficient with that, because she already has the Quick and Pulse effect in her weapon, and you can also already have the time pulse. So all you need to do is give her double life and death, and she's going to be clearing up maps pretty easily with like 3 dancers. And you can also give her Iceberg, like I said, which is really good with her resistance, especially with resistance stacking like this. And Oath Force skill is going to be a good skill that you can run, because Time Pulse does not really do too much once you have got your Special Spiral charged up. So you can run Attack Res Oath Force so that you can get more attack and more resistance to do more Iceberg damage. That is definitely an option. She doesn't really have too many options that she can run in her builds, and her options are kind of limited, and she already comes with a pretty good base kit. But there are a few changes like these that you can make to make her a bit premium with skills like these. Caeldori is a Lance Flier with 184 BST, and she's got Prodigy Polearm as her preferred weapon. This gives her -1 special cooldown, and at start of combat, if she's at or above 25% HP, then she can get +5 to all of her stats, null follow-up, and also debuff the opponent's attack and defense in combat by X% of her visible speed. Now this X can vary from like 10% to like 35%, so it's definitely quite variable. It does work off of her visible speed, so the more visible speed that you have, the better it is. But keep in mind that the X percentage is calculated by multiplying 5 to all of these stats, which are not more than 5 higher than the foe, and then by adding 10 to it. Now pretty much to explain this with an example, she's got base 31 resistance, and this effect does compare the visible stats. So if she faces a foe who has got 26 resistance, then that counts as, one of these stats which she has got 5 more higher. So it is going to be giving her 15% of her visible speed stat as a attack and defense debuff. But keep in mind that if she's up against someone with like 17 resistance or like 20 resistance, then she's not going to be able to count that. So basically, you need to be strong, but not that strong. You kind of need to give them a false sense of security. And that is pretty much how her weapon can function. So the visible speed stat is definitely pretty important for getting more attack and defense debuff to be a bit more bulky. So this effect can definitely make her hit a lot harder and also be a lot more tanky. But keep in mind that it just depends on the stats of the foes. So it's definitely not something that you can control. She also has Draconic Aura, attack speed catch 4, and attack speed hold as her base kit, and she also has pretty good base attack at base 40 with 44 base speed as well. She does have a super boon in attack, which is going to be helpful for just doing more damage, and she does have pretty balanced mixed bulk as you would expect out of Caeldori. Now usually I hate myself whenever I'm late to banner reviews and such, but this time I'm kind of glad because we got to see Winter Cordelia, her mother and her potential grandmother, just giving her the competition. So Winter Cordelia is sparkable. She is just extremely insane as a support unit because of the dual strike effect and the orders buff that she can give. And Inseverable Spear does have the special charges, which means that she is much better Gale Force unit. Sure, she's not going to be as good of a mixed phase unit as Caeldori, but overall the value of Winter Cordelia is going to be a lot higher than Caeldori in my eyes at the very least, and for many of the competitive players as well, because she's got a lot more unique effect. Similar to Brattle Katria, which is going to be a very meta effect, honestly, in many of the competitive game modes. But still, she's going to be one of the better ones because of having a full null follow-up in her weapon, which means that she doesn't really have to run a flow skill. She can just run a trace skill and be fine and function in the mix phase, which I think is definitely one of her biggest strengths. And having the attack debuff on the opponent can definitely make her bulky for higher investment builds. And her offensive stat spread is definitely pretty nice. So if you want to invest into Caeldori and just run a budget build, then Windsweep is actually a pretty good option, because keep in mind that she does have a full null follow-up in her weapon. So you don't really need to run Desperation when you can run Windsweep and simply double the foes without getting counter-attacked, which is definitely really nice. You can also just run Blade Session, as you're mainly going to be functioning in the player phase with a Windsweep build. But if you want to invest a bit more into her, then you can also run Dive Bomb from the Divine Codes. And she's just amazing with Dive Bomb. The reason being is that she's got the full null follow-up in her weapon, so nothing like a follow-up negation effect is going to be stopping her from getting her double. And she can pretty much trigger Moonbow on her double of the Dive Bomb, which is really good. But overall, the best slot-based skill for her is definitely going to be Speed, Defense, Neo Trace, which allows her to get the speed and defense debuffs in both phases, and also allows her to have the Canto Mobility. And like I said, she is going to be standing out compared to the other flyers, where she does not need to run a flow skill, just like her, mother and grandmother, who definitely have to make a choice between either Flow Guard or Neo Trace. So she doesn't have to do that, which is definitely really, really good for her. And if you have the fodder, then this is definitely something you should be doing. You can also run her with Seiðr Sparrow and get a ton of healing in the player phase by using Luna as your special. And here she is again unique, because a lot of these kinds of units will be running flow skills so that they can get the double and get the healing on the second hit. But she can just run the trace skill while still having the null follow-up in her weapon. And you can just run Blade Session for a player phase build like this. You can also run her in Aether Raids offense for a Gale Force team, and you can use one of her mother's friends in Na for the support. So even though she can get the attack debuffs in the combat, it's, in my opinion, not the most reliable, because it depends on the enemy stats. So getting the Heavy Blade check is going to be annoying, so might as well outsource the special charges to Na, which is a lot better. And by running Double Fury, she can perfectly be at 56 HP, which means that in 2 combats, she's going to be entering the Wings of Mercy range. And this is really helpful for your allies to teleport and Gale Force the opponent's team. And she also is going to be boosting up her visible speed stat by running Double Fury. So overall, this build can definitely work out in Aether Raid's offense. And with her balanced mixed bulk, she's not going to be very frail like many of the initiators. So she's going to be having a good balance between offense and defense, and can just initiate the Gale Force against many of the teams. And then finally, you can also run her with a max investment build by running the Clash skill, and by also having Speed Smoke 4. So she can function in the mixed phase because of the attack debuffs that she can get, and she can be a lot more deceptively bulky than you think. And she can run Attack Speed Clash, which can neutralize the attack and speed debuffs, and Speed Smoke 4 is going to be helping you get that damage reduction. Kiragi is the instant demote of this banner, and he's going to be getting added into the 3-star 4-star pool, and he is going to be a 169 BST colorless infantry archer with Unbound Bow. So Unbound Bow is basically a non-seasonal version of Helm Bow, where it does have the solo lull speed defense effect built into it. And when it comes to the stat spread, Kiragi has got pretty amazing base speed at 43 and also base 38 attack, and he does have super boon in both of them. And he also has a lot higher defense than many of the archers. There are not a lot of archers with this kind of attack, speed, and defense distribution where they have a lot more defense like Kiragi. So whenever Arcane Bow comes out, I think Kiragi is definitely going to be one of the best users of it out of the free-to-play pool. And he does come with Sparrow 2 at 5-star and gives you drive speed at 4-star. So Kiragi's main comparison is going to be among the free-to-play units like Young Innis and Jomke, who are from the Grail pool and they have excellent weapons. Young Innis in particular is going to be having a pretty fantastic weapon and is kind of similar to Kiragi when it comes to the speed stat, but of course he doesn't really have as much defense as him. And whenever Arcane Bow comes out, I think that is going to be extremely helpful for Kiragi. And I think you should be waiting until the Arcane Bow before investing, you know, very premium skills into him, because I think Arcane Bow is pretty close to us, because we've got Kiragi, Ninja Heath, Winter and Net, all of these bow units in the recent times, so it does make sense. Now if you want to build up Kiragi still, even outside of Arcane Bow, then you can just invest into him with a budget build with Speed Defense Link and reposition from Norn. So you just need one Norn to have a budget build and you should be doing fine. But if you want to invest a bit more into him, and this is something that even if we get Arcane Bow he can still do, and it is going to be having value, is by running Whitecap Bow Plus, which does give you the Brave effect, and he can easily quad attack with this kind of weapon. So you can run attack speed ideal, null follow up, and attack speed oath 4 to pretty much function as a player phase archer who can hit really hard. And because his defense is a bit higher than most of the archers, he can still tank the physical hits or distant counter opponents here and there, but you definitely need to watch out for the mages and the dragons because his resistance is going to be a bit lower for that. And you can also run Tannin Bow from Winter Ignats, which does have attack defense unity built into it. And you can also run attack speed unity as a slotted skill, so you can pretty much have triple unity to his like 3 main stats essentially, and run null follow up. So this can be a pretty fun build, and Kiragi can be a pretty good user of Deadeye, especially whenever he gets debuffed on his attack stat. He's going to be able to get double unity out of it. You can also run Reindeer Bow actually if you want to have a bit more defensive bow, and this does give you the guard effect, which is always helpful even in the player phase. And you can run attack speed finish 4 so that you can get the healing and the true damage. So the self-sufficiency out of the finish 4 skill is pretty nice, and you can also run Ruptured Sky as a 2 cooldown special. And 2 cooldown specials are going to be easy to trigger in a single round of combat, which is going to be consistent with the finish 4 skill. And because his defense is pretty nice, you can just run Speed Smoke 4 so that he can get that damage reduction. If you want to run a more invested Whitecap Bow build, then you can simply give him attack speed finish, time pulse, and also speed defense tempo. So you can always trigger Ruptured Sky on his second hit, and this is going to be able to do a lot of damage with the true damage that he gets out of the finish kill, and just overall stacking up his offenses. And because his defense is definitely pretty nice, if you want to make him into more of an enemy phase unit, then I guess you can try and run Close Reversal. So this is a bit of a ballsy build, I would say. Not the most optimal, but I still wanted to include it because Kiragi is kind of unique with his high speed and high defense, for an archer at least. So he does have access to Peppy Bow from Winter and Net, which does give you the follow-up negation. And with this kind of speed, it pretty much becomes a pseudo half null follow-up, which can help you defensively, you know, just shut down the auto follow-up attacks of the enemies. And then you can just run Close Reversal, Mystic Boost 4 for the debuff and self-sufficiency, and then Panic Smoke 4 and its Pelagian effect is going to be pretty nice for a tanking build like this. And if Arcane Bow can have more defensive effects, then this is something that is going to be much better, and especially whenever we can get the speed variant of the Close Reversal skill, which can allow you to also run Speed Smoke 4 and pretty much get the damage reduction in the enemy phase. So I think that is going to be overall the end game if you want to run an enemy phase build, but for now this is definitely something that he has got access to. Dwyer is the final unit of this banner, and he was the 4-star focus, and he is going to be present in the 3-star 4-star pool as well, and he has got 8+ as the inheritable staff, which is basically the non-seasonal version of Staff of 12 of Sai and Nana, so it can heal up 10 HP to the ally who has taken the most damage at sort of every turn. So this staff is pretty nice for the multi-maps like Chain Challenges, for example, or Tempest Trial. He also has an ARD skill in ARD Attack Resistance 3 at 4-star and provides Speed Tactic at 5-star. So getting Speed Tactic in the normal summoning pool is definitely pretty nice, and the ARD Attack Res is mainly useful for Aether Raids defense mythic units like Zeros, for example, or units that use a lot in Aether Raids defense. But honestly at this point we have so much better skills like Unity, Finishes, and so many of the other options that you can give to a unit in their slot A over just the pure stats that, you know, ARD skills give. But still it's nice to have as a budget option, and he does have a base attack of 37 and base speed of 35. And comparing him to the recent healers that we have got in Elise, he is basically like a new gen Natasha, he doesn't really have as much attack as Elise, which does make her a bit more unique for his staff unit, and pretty much has the same speed stat as her. This is that he does have more resistance than Elise, and that's why I say that he is like a new gen Natasha, because his stat spread definitely matches up well with her in pretty much every single stat, give or take. So Dwyer is pretty much like that, and he's not really going to be standing out too much compared to Elise, who has got really high attack for a healer, or Nina, who has got a really high speed for a healer. And Nina also has resistance on top of speed, so she can also just run the sabotage skill and debuffing skills like Dwyer. So unfortunately, we have got too many staff units, and they definitely need some kind of arcane staff at this point, but even then they are purely going to be defined by their stats essentially. And if you're a big fan of Dwyer, then he's definitely going to be viable. He is just a new gen Natasha, like I said. Even though he doesn't really hit as hard as Elise, he can be useful at max investment if you're a big fan of him. ARD skill is absolutely of no use outside of Aether Raids defense, and let's be honest, you're really not going to be using Dwyer on Aether Raids defense, especially at Unmerged. So that's why you can give him attack defense form from Karen and just have live to serve, which does have good synergy with Martyr, and you can just give him the tactic skill to support your allies. If you want to invest a bit more into him, then you can also give him sabotage attack, fortress resistance, and double breadth of life. So this is basically a multi-map healer build where you're going to be healing up at sort of the every single map with 8+, and also at start of every single turn. And then you can also heal up HP by attacking by using Breath of Life, so that is pretty helpful. And if you want to use him a bit more offensively, then Divine Codes does have all of the things that you need, with Return Plus, Fire Flood Bomb Plus, the ideal skill, Dazzling Staff, Odd Recovery, and you can just get Palm Staff from the Grail pool. So this is going to be making him a bit more offensive healer, and you can definitely invest into his speed just like you would do to Elise. But if you don't really want to do that, then a more attack and resistance oriented version of this is going to be with a Serpentine Staff with attack res unity and double Savage Blow. So the Fatal Smoke of the Serpentine Staff and the chip damage can definitely make him do a lot of damage and a lot of splash damage to the foes, which can allow his allies to finish them off. And you can also run him with a more supportive build with Respite Plus, which does have Drive Guard built into it, and you can pretty much run this build to support your save tanks by running Distant Guard in the Sloxy and by debuffing the attack stat by using Sabotage Attack. He does have the resistance for that, so it is going to be useful, and he also has a super boon in it, so he can easily run these Sabotage skills compared to Elise, who does have a bit lower resistance. And finally, you can also use him with a max investment Palm Staff build with attack speed finish 4, which does actually work with a bomb skill. You just need to have the bomb skill pre-charged, which is pretty easy to do nowadays with Asker, Duo Crom, and a lot of support that you can provide to an infantry unit. So it's pretty easy to do and then get the true damage and healing out of the finish skill. And Oath 4 skill is going to be giving you extra offenses and the teleportation, which is really nice. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member down below as well. And for more Fae videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I wish YouTube sub boxes would show my videos as many times as we get staff demotes. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.